Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Engineering Talent Award nominee interviews. These are brought to you by Equal Engineers. We are an organisation focused on improving the diversity and inclusion of the engineering industry. And you can find out much more about us on our website. Now, this is a series of webinar interviews led by myself, Theon Dixon, and David Purgie. And in these interviews, we're having discussions with those who have been nominated at this year's awards. Now, because of the COVID situation, the awards that were due to take place in April have been postponed until, I would like to say, the near future. So we'll look out for those. But we invite you today to send any questions that you might have or any need for technical support to the Q&A facility. So don't go to the other facility because nobody will be there. Fraser will be ready to help you at the Q&A facility should you need it. And a link to this webinar and the other webinars will be available to share once they're all complete. So do share away. Now, today I'm here talking to Professor Elena Rodriguez-Falcon, who is an esteemed and respected female engineer who is changing the face of engineering education within the UK and is nominated for Executive Leader of the Year. Good afternoon, Elena. How are you?
I'm very well, Theon. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
It's so lovely to meet you again. Of course, we met about 18 months ago or so. We've been having a couple of chats in readiment, if that is a word, for this interview. So I'm really excited to have you. Thank you for giving us the time today.
Delighted. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Okay then, so the floor is open for questions from our wonderful audience, but I'm going to basically make a start by just clarifying for everybody and asking, what is it that you do?
Well, once again, thank you for inviting me. So I'm a mechanical engineer by background and an educator who joined academia, I don't know, 22 years ago. But currently, I am leading the design and creation of an aspiring higher education institute in Hereford. We will be focused on engineering education particularly, hence why I mentioned that I'm a mechanical engineer. And the idea of this new institute is to deliver new engineering degrees that challenge current pedagogical models. So instead of, for example, learning in big lecture theaters with hundreds of other students about engineering, what we want to do is to have a small group learning that is based on current relevant projects from industry, and of course a gender balanced organization. So very much hands-on, very much relevant, very much authentic. So for me, as a leader of this new organization, no one day is the same, as you can imagine. It's a startup organization. One day is about infrastructure. The next day is about working with the local authorities. Another day is about the academic program. So all about visioning, inspiring, keeping everyone going in what is very exciting but complex.
This is really exciting because, of course, we all learn differently, don't we? And for some, you know, having to be in a lecture-style theatre all the time could really put quite a heaviness upon the way that they learn, whereas other people might like that. But what you're doing is you're really mixing things up. So like you say, no day is the same. So it's so exciting.
It is very exciting. We are not ready yet. We're in the process of putting everything in place, and hopefully we'll be able to announce when we can start formally recruiting students. But it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, so has this sort of pandemic then kind of put quite a delay on when you want to get started?
Yes, I think that, I think everyone around the world has suffered to a great extent. For us, it's about pushing our timetables back I don't know, 5-6 months. I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but we haven't stopped. We are working really hard. There is so much to do. We are creating this organization from a blank piece of paper, which is really exciting, as you can imagine, but equally challenging. So there is always something to do, something to improve.
Yeah. And to have an organisation like this set up in the UK at this time, it's not been done for like 40 years or so, has it? I mean, this is incredible that you're doing this now.
It's really exciting, and it's really important to just see how not only in the industry, but the government. We are in Hereford, which is a cold spot for higher education. So there are so many interesting combination of factors supported by the Department for Education, supported by local philanthropists. That industry are crying out for us to test this model, and we as educators are really excited to have the opportunity to see a different way of learning tested throughout a program.
I'm wondering if, the way that you were taught, because you're so passionate about this, I mean, why did you decide to get into engineering?
Oh, you won't believe this. I studied mechanical engineering, and not because I had a passion for it. I don't even think I understood what engineering is, if I'm honest completely. In fact, I was the first member of my immediate family to go to university, and the only relative that I had was a cardiologist who had gone to university, was a cardiologist. So without a role model in my family, it's not a surprise that when I was little, I could imagine myself being a cardiologist, to be precise. But of course, when I realized that I wasn't very good with blood, then that career path was put to rest. No, the truth is that I decided to study engineering because I come from a very industrial city in Mexico. And if you look around, I suppose the career prospects that were available to me, to others, were particularly in industry. So I decided to study engineering because I thought I was going to be able to get a job. It's also true that I had heard that not many women studied engineering. So I just wanted to prove a point, I suppose. But it was later on in my career that I learned to love engineering, because I realized what opportunities and what huge impact we can make when we use it for the right things.
I mean, you mentioned, the fact that women weren't seen to go into the industry so much. So historically, why do you think less women have gone into engineering? And, how do you intend to address this situation or address the balance?
I mean, there are so many hypotheses. I have a few. If you think about, I think if you look at what's happening around the world, different countries, different drivers, I've always wondered, if I hadn't been in a developing country where if you don't get a job, you basically don't eat, then there is a different driver that in a different country where it's a fully developed country, and you have a choice, and you can choose different careers. So I have various views. One is about the drivers that you have in different countries. The other is about the misunderstanding of what the subject is. So, and I mean, you see it quite a lot. You see people misconstruing a vocational career like being a mechanic with a professional engineering career like a mechanical engineer. And language has a lot to do with that. If you think of engineering or the word engineer in English, it comes from the word engine. So it's not a surprise that people will put two and two together. But if then you look at German and Spanish, for example, the word is ingeniero. It comes from the word ingenuity. So you can explain it a bit better. So I think that historically there is a problem of language, a problem of context, and of course, a problem of role models. If there aren't enough role models, it's difficult to convey, to persuade. So what should we do? Well, I think in general, we should be on a permanent, huge campaign, not only the government, industry, educators, everyone has to be on a permanent campaign, to be honest, so that those confusions, those misunderstandings can be clarified, and that we can celebrate what engineering is, what engineering can do. And certainly there are plenty of problems that we've created in the world, climate change, just to mention one, that can be resolved by using engineering. Particularly RNMIT is part of our vision to have a 50% gender, so 50-50 gender balance. And there are so many things we need to do. One is continue to be part of that conversation. But if we must headhunt those hands-on learners and persuade people from all genders that there is a place where they fit, then we will do that, Fayon. But I think everyone needs to play a role in changing minds and hearts.
Absolutely right. And, you know, when we speak to young people and you let them know, no matter what gender they are, that they can change the world somehow, because everybody has their own ideas. But if we keep our ideas to ourselves, nothing's ever going to change. And what engineering brings, because I am not an engineer, but I've been working in the field of engineering through helping young people to network with people like yourself, and it's switching on that light bulb for them and letting them know that their contribution is really important. And without it, we're missing something. That, you know, there's a part of this, you know, a part of a solution that will just go away if they don't bring forth their thoughts. I mean, it's such an exciting industry, isn't it?
It's transformational, that's the word.
Yeah, absolutely transformational. But with all the transformation and for the fact that we want more, you know, women to come into the industry, it does bring its challenges as well. So, I mean, I would like to ask you, have you ever had to overcome adversity? Now, I know English is not your first language, and you know, you're here in the UK setting up higher education for us. But you know, if you've ever had to overcome any other adversity, would you be able to explain?
Yes, I mean, who hasn't, to be honest? Adversity is part of life and what makes us grow. I mean, when I look back at my life and my career, just as I was about to graduate, I'll just give you a few examples because I think they are important and just might be helpful for people who are listening or who can listen. But when I was about to graduate, about 1993, I was looking for jobs, and I mean, you'll be appalled to hear, and this is we're talking about 25 years ago or longer than that, that equality, diversity, inclusion matters were not at the heart of things in Mexico. So I was looking for a job, and there were job adverts everywhere for male engineers. To be precise, male engineers. And of course you see that and you think, well, I just graduated with, you know, huge, you know, competing with my male colleagues, and why am I not having the same opportunities? So I that didn't deter me. I applied to every single job that said male engineers anyway, because of course, and I did manage to get one, which proves that the point that if you persevere, you can overcome those challenges. And I did get that particular job where I was a production supervisor for over 200 blue-collar workers, and that was possibly one of the biggest challenges of my life. Not the biggest, I'll tell you about the biggest in a moment, but it was because they were all male, and they were all very, very adverse to me being there as a young woman engineer. They didn't want me there. So I had to use not only technical skills, but really use skills that normally people don't talk about. empathy, gratitude, asking for help, sharing your own knowledge to be able to turn things around. And of course, that taught me that to be a holistic engineer, you need both technical and other types of skills. It's very important. When I came to the UK, those served me right, but I underestimated the challenge of moving into a different culture. Language, you mentioned language. Language was the first one. Culture, different educational environments, and that took some time. But no challenge was bigger than my main challenge, which admittedly was coming out as a gay woman, and to me that was. It took me forever. I was married to a man from a very highly religious culture, an only child. It certainly was the biggest challenge of my life, but also once I had the courage to overcome that challenge, certainly it became the biggest relief and the most significant and the one that has given me the most positive impact in not only in my life but in my career as well. So we overcome adversity in many aspects of life, and all of them either impact both your life and your career. They are interchangeably connected, and you have to take them on, really.
I mean, you mentioned courage, and to live our lives, we are courageous. It takes courage to live our lives. So some people, it's courageous for them just to get out of bed, and put 2 feet down on the floor and say, right, I'm going to try and do something today. But to actually go through a process of being married and being, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe feeling even trapped in your relationship and that you're not being yourself. By now, you've already started training as a mechanical engineer. You've seen your future. You want to fly, and to actually say I'm going to do this is incredible and gives so many other people that confidence that they can do it too. Because I know you speak openly about this subject, and it is so important and empowering. Do you find that when you meet other women who are from the LGBTQ community, that they want to speak to you about that first, or do they want to speak to you about your career?
That's a good question. I think depending on where they are in that journey. If they are still very early on and they still haven't come out as part of this community, then they might be asking for help and advice and reassurances. But I think in general, there are questions that I'm asked regularly. Is it going to affect your career? Are you going to be discriminated against? Those questions are questions that are recurring, including my own. In my own experience, I used to ask myself those questions. One was on a personal nature, and then the other was, what's going to happen to my career? Am I going to be discriminated against? And the truth is that neither happened. Of course, it was very difficult, and it was very difficult because there was another person involved. But the truth was that I was supported in a way that I didn't expect. And I am very grateful to those who were around me at the time.
Yeah, I feel a support mechanism in anything that you do. And it's been a real privilege to speak to all of the engineers in this, as nominees, and finding out more about them, because every single one of them, no matter what shade, what race, what gender, everybody's had their own problems, and they've had to dig deep to really believe in themselves and go for gold. Because it's one thing, getting a degree in the career that you want, but then actually going into a workplace. but you're setting up a workplace that has no boundaries at all, and there certainly isn't any ceiling. I mean, it's just...
When we talk about adversity, I mean, of course, there are adversity. Maybe is not the right word. Challenges are I would say is a better word. We all have challenges, and this current challenge, that professional challenge that I have, is huge. I mean, who even says that they are going to start a new higher education institution? I mean, it's just huge, but equally worthwhile. And of course, you use some of the things that you've learned throughout your life, advice that you've received, lessons that you've learned, problems that you've overcome, networks that you've developed, and then you bring all of that with your own skills, with your own passion and determination, courage, and then see what happens. But it's likely that you are going to struggle, and you need to rely on others, and that's the most important thing.
But the winning is in the struggle, isn't it? And you don't actually realize that until you've started having some wins. It's okay to struggle. You know, it's when you stop, you know, that's when you really need to, you know, pull in your resources and dig. But struggling is fine. I think, you know, I have teenage stepdaughters, and the eldest one worries when she is struggling or there's a problem and she's fighting, and I'm like, over that brick wall there is the beauty, so don't worry about that. It's not always going to be perfect. You don't always get it the first time, sometimes second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, but it's your resilience at the end of the day. So the staff that you're bringing in, I mean, are you bringing in an international crowd? I'm just imagining, I want to be there when it opens. Can I come?
I know, yes, of course you can. You know, it's interesting. I was reflecting on the people we have actually this morning, because we have a new chief academic officer who's just joined us. And I was just talking her through the history that I've lived through in the last 2.5 years. And it's amazing in 2.5 years what one can achieve with a good dream, and with a lot of passion and hard work. And we've attracted people from all over the UK, from different parts of the world, Asia, North America, South America, very many people. And I think the people who are right now with us are those who are the dreamers, who are the challengers, the disruptors in higher education, who want to do something different, who've been trying for years and years and haven't been able to do it in their previous jobs. And I think that's really exciting. We have a bunch of innovators. It's a little bit like a Silicon Valley for higher education in Hereford.
I love that. That is wonderful. And it's like educators assemble. I can feel them literally coming in from everywhere. And, you know, when you get into a situation where you are teaching others, you really do need to have that eclectic mix, don't you? You really do. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. And education, if education doesn't reflect the society we live in, you talked about diversity, that if it doesn't reflect the society we live in, then it's a false construct, it's a false scenario. It doesn't really train you to go out there. And that's why it's so important to have a diverse workforce, diverse student population once we are in that position, so that we are truly educating rather than teaching, educating for a world that exists, not a case study effectively.
That is a really excellent point. I use that a lot when I go into schools and I talk to young people, and I say, teachers teach. you are responsible for how you learn.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and if your teacher is educating you in a way that you feel you can go beyond just hearing what they're telling you and going, oh, right, that's it. But you want to have your mind literally popping open and questioning and say, why? You know, how? You know, what? You know, you want more, don't you? You want to be thirsty. And I feel that's what you're going to be offering. And I will take that invitation for the large opening.
You'll be here first on the queue.
Oh, I don't need to be first. I'll just be in the back somewhere. I just want to see. I just want to see. So, you know, you meet so many people and, you know, you've had a long career so far, and you know, going into this next phase is super exciting. But I'm wondering, you know, where you've got your advice from over the years that have given you the, you know, that have empowered you to go forward, and what was the best advice you've ever been given?
I think it would be unfair if I tell you just one, because I am very fortunate, very lucky to have been born in a family like mine, with my parents, and they were the first mentors who always they didn't have the opportunities that they gave me, and so they always encouraged me, and they always advised me to work very hard, to treat people properly, to dream. They always said, treat people properly, be grateful, dream, work hard, you'll achieve. Just don't let anyone treat you badly. Those were, I think, the first lessons that I learned. But when I was doing my degree, I had a placement. And the very first boss I ever had, I think he really changed my future, because when I arrived to that particular company, he said to me, Elena, there are only two rules here. The first one is not only you are allowed to make mistakes, you are encouraged to make mistakes. Imagine that my surprise, first of all, and kind of that, like the relief, because you are always afraid of making mistakes. You've been trained not to make mistakes. They give you exams so that you get it right. So making mistakes is not something that you are actually trained to do. He said that the second rule, however, is that once you make that mistake, you're not allowed to make it again.
Okay.
But basically, he was saying, test, experiment. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you learn from it. What matters is that you get a sense of what the risk is that you're going to take, put a mitigation plan. But the worst tragedy would be not to take the risk, not to learn something from that experience. So that advice for me has been the most incredible advice. And it's something that every time we have a new member of staff, my own students, learners, I use it on a day-to-day basis. We have to experiment. We have to test. We have to see whether it works. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, what's the worst that can happen? And if the worst that can happen is that you are going to be able to do it again, or not do it, or do something else, then that's fine. As long as it's legal and it doesn't hurt people, then it's fine.
Absolutely right. Gosh, you know, time is ticking on, and I forgot about the people who are watching. Hi, everyone. Just enjoying my chat with Elena. I could just talk to you all day long. But I do encourage you, if you have a question for Elena, then do send it forward before we end. But I guess I'd ask you then, anybody who's watching who wants to get into this world of engineering or higher education, or is feeling trapped, you know, in a life where they can't express themselves, I mean, what would you tell them? I mean, that's a big ask, I know, but what would you say?
Oh, you know, the main challenge that one can have is the fear that you have inside. Is overcoming fear is really hard. And I mean, I share with you very personally my struggle. And the one thing that was stopping me was fear. So I would say to everyone who's watching, who's feeling trapped or they are feeling like they don't know what to do, is first of all to ask themselves that question: what's the worst that can happen? And if the worst that can happen is still that you are going to be in a better position, although a struggle will take place, then ask for help. You know, I've couldn't have got to where I am without help, and I've always asked for help, and I've always had a mentor or a friend, but I've always had at least one or two mentors. So find a mentor, whether it's formal or informal. Ask for help, ask for advice, and don't be afraid, because it does get better. Once you take the courage, that the step, once you take that leap, it does get better.
I think that's sterling advice. You know, face the fear and do it anyway. You've got all these, you know, sayings that you hear, but when you take that step forwards, you know, even if it's just the one, you look back and you're in a different place than you were before. So it's keeping going, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was talking to our new chief academic officer today, and I was saying that you, in this particular role that I have, believe me, you have to have a core of steel, and you really have to have the stomach for it, because of course this is a venture, this is a risky venture with limited resources, that where it's an experiment. And of course, on a daily basis, you have to hold tight and think, okay, keep going. And you, I mean, I constantly carry this pressure, fear that something is going to go wrong, and I am responsible for it. But either I stop and I go, okay, I can do it, or I just keep going. And that moment when you decide, just keep going, don't give up, is really hard. It's really hard, and people don't talk about it. People just say, it's great, you can do it, but it is really hard. And you just have to keep going and keep being honest and asking for help. And if at any point you're saying, I can't, either you acknowledge that that's okay. Sometimes you have to stop, but first ask for help. First ask for advice. Don't just stop.
Very, very good advice. Gosh, we are getting towards the end of this interview. It's literally flown by so quickly. I'm like checking the time. I'm like, wow, where did that go?
It feels like we're having a chat.
Yeah, well, exactly that. That's what I'd love it to feel like. So that's great. And I suppose the final question before we finish, looking at our nominations, is you are up for Executive Leader of the Year award. I just wanted to know what that would mean to you to win.
Oh, wow. What a question, isn't it? Listen, years ago, when I was at the University of Sheffield, are you okay? Choking? Good? Yeah. When I was at the University of Sheffield, I had the honor of leading women, the Women in Engineering agenda. And I worked really hard at trying to change things. Let me just wait and see that she's not choking. You're okay? I keep going? Keep going? Okay. So I was working really hard at that around that time to change things, to improve things for women in the sector. And then I realized that there were many other challenges. Basically, for example, topics of sexuality were wholly avoided in engineering. There are challenges on BME representation. There are challenges in terms of mental health. And if you look at all of those things and many others, there is a lot to be done. At the time, I even started a campaign, hashtag I look like an LGBT engineer, because I wanted to talk about my intersectionality. I'm not just Mexican, I'm not just gay, I'm not just a female engineer, I'm many things. And so when I joined NMIT, the press picked up on that work that I had done before. And then they published this article, and the headline was very dramatic. It was the only Mexican gay female engineer in Hereford is creating a new higher education institute. It was really dramatic. And I underestimated what that actually meant. I started to get lots and lots of communication from young people and not so young people saying, I cannot be who I am at my university, in my country, in my job as a student. And when you open, I would like to go there. So I feel I have a responsibility to be an ambassador and share what we stand for in terms of equality, diversity, and inclusion, an example, a responsibility to be an example, a role model, and to show that it is okay to be who you are. In fact, it makes you a happier person, and organizations need to have the courage to open their doors inclusively and not just in a tokenistic way, genuinely. So being shortlisted for this award is an incredible honor. As you say in English, winning it would be the cherry on top. But to be honest, is about the visibility of role models. It's about the opportunity to develop a fabulous network that I'm really excited about. And of course, I would be very happy if I did win it, but I'm very happy right now to be able to share with whoever is watching the stories of my career and my life and what we are trying to do at NMIT, and hopefully be able to be someone who's enable change.
That is the key, and it just would be wonderful to give everybody an award, but of course, you're already winning. But yes, as we do say in Britain, the cherry on the top. But it's just great to have you part of our equal engineering family. It really is. And I can't thank you enough for today. It's been wonderful to hear your insight to higher education, what you're looking to establish, and of course sharing your personal struggles with us as well. I know it's going to have a great impact on those watching, so thank you so much.
It is my pleasure, and thank you, Fayon. Thank you to ETA and Equal Engineers for considering me. Good luck, everyone.
That is great. Well, we are all out of time, so a massive thank you to Elena. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for tuning in. And of course, we look forward to celebrating together in the future, whenever that will be. But until then, take care, stay safe, have a good day.